You've been faithful to the wrong version of yourself. Loyalty actually is supposed to be a virtue, and it is until it isn't. Until the thing you're being loyal to is the very thing that's keeping you from becoming who you're supposed to be. Most people never actually question their loyalty. They just keep showing up for it. They just keep defending it. They just keep building their entire life around it because it feels familiar, because it's safe, because somewhere along the way they decided this is who I am, and they've been faithful to that decision ever since, even when it stopped being true. There is a version of you that was built from circumstance, not by choice, not by intention, not by sitting down one day and deciding this is who I want to be and this is how I want to move through the world. It was built by what happened to you, by what people said about you when you were young enough to believe them, by the environment you grew up in and the options that were visible to you, and the version of success that was modeled around you, by the wounds that never fully healed and the fears that moved in and made themselves at home. That version of you is real. It survived real things. It developed real strategies for navigating a real world that was sometimes hard and sometimes unkind. But that version of you was built for survival, not for becoming. And you've been faithful to it long past the season it has meant to serve. Here's what faithfulness to the wrong version looks like. It looks like shrinking in rooms where you have something to say. It looks like choosing the safe option so consistently that you've stopped noticing you're doing it. It looks like apologizing for your ambition or hiding it entirely because the version of you that was built by circumstance learned early that wanting too much was dangerous. It looks like staying in situations that have expired because the version of you that built those situations doesn't know how to leave them. It looks like self-sabotage that doesn't feel like self-sabotage. It feels like being realistic, being humble, knowing your place. It looks like a ceiling you installed yourself and then forgot you put there. And every day you wake up and live inside that ceiling, you're being faithful, deeply, consistently, unconsciously faithful to a version of yourself that was never meant to be permanent. The hard question is this: when did you decide this was who you are? And did you actually decide, or did life decide for you and you just never challenged it? Because there is a difference between a chosen identity and an inherited one, between who you are and who you were told you were, between the self you built consciously and the self that got built around you while you were busy just trying to get through. Most people never really question this, but because the answer requires something uncomfortable. It requires admitting that the version of yourself you've been protecting, defending, showing up for every single day might not actually be you. It might just be the story that stuck. Faithfulness to the wrong version of you costs everything slowly. It doesn't feel like failure. It feels like life. It feels like this is just how things are. For someone like me, it feels like the gap between who you are and who you sense you could be is just the natural distance between reality and fantasy. But it's not fantasy, it's not unrealistic, it's not arrogance or delusion or getting ahead of yourself. It's the truest thing about you trying to get out. And the version of you built by circumstance keeps pushing it back down, keeps calling it impractical, keeps reminding you of every time something didn't work, keeps pointing to every piece of evidence that says stay small, stay safe, stay here, because that version of you doesn't know any other way, and it will keep applying that logic forever unless you decide it doesn't get to make the final decision anymore. Becoming requires a specific kind of betrayal, not betrayal of values, not betrayal of people who love you, not betrayal of where you came from or what you've been through, but betrayal of the version of yourself that was built to survive a season you are no longer in. You are allowed to outgrow the self that got you here, the strategies, the beliefs, the identities, the limitations you've been carrying, and set them down, not with shame, not with apology, but with the quiet, firm recognition that they serve their purpose and that purpose is complete. The version of you built for survival got through. Honor that and then release it. Because the version of you built for becoming is waiting, has been waiting, and it cannot fully emerge until you stop being faithful to the one that has been holding it back for long. This is not about reinventing yourself, it's about returning to yourself, the self that existed before the world told you who to become and you started believing it, the self that had instincts you learned to ignore and desires you learned to minimize. and the sense of direction you learned to distrust. That self didn't disappear, it just went quiet because you stopped listening and eventually it stopped trying to be heard. But it's still there, underneath the faithful performance of a version of you that was never really you, and it's been waiting for you to come back to it. The question is not who do you want to become, the question is who have you always been? Go back to that, be faithful to that, build from that. Everything else was just the long way of getting you here. My name is Emmanuel, and you are welcome to Journey to Becoming.